Just in the time that this running back has played for Alabama, the Tide have seen some superstars come through the program. He was stuck behind guys like Bo Scarborough, Damian Harris, Josh Jacobs, and most recently, Najee Harris. He was a hometown kid who was expected to do well for the Tide, but did not have the initial success that most big-time Bama backs have. He was always a backup, he was always seen as a second-tier option, and no one ever thought he'd become a star for the Tide. Well, he has changed the narrative in 2021, proved everyone wrong, and in my eyes, he is the most disrespected Alabama running back in a long time. His name is Brian Robinson Jr. In today's video, we're going to talk about his story, his time with the Alabama Crimson Tide, how he has proved everyone wrong, and what I think is in store for his future. But right before we get into that, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, and we can do better than that, plus we're on the road to 100K, so quickly be sure to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button for the algorithm, turn on post notifications, and let me know another 2022 NFL Draft prospect I could do next. Now, let's talk about Brian Robinson. Going back in time, Brian Robinson grew up pretty close to the Alabama program. In fact, he grew up in Tuscaloosa and had dreams of one day playing for the Tide. It actually ran in his family though, as his cousin, Josh Lanier, actually was a wide receiver back in the day for the Tide as well. Robinson got the nickname of the neighborhood superstar, and young Tuscaloosa football players knew they could not stop him. By the time he was in middle school, he had become a force, and he was even tall and athletic enough to dunk a basketball in 7th grade. When he eventually arrived in high school, he had one goal. That was to play for Alabama. His high school coach actually thought it was possible too. He said, quote, "I could see first the God-given abilities that he had, and his size and speed and his strength. After getting to know him for a little bit as a person back then, I felt very confident if he stayed on that path, then he could achieve that goal, and that's what he did." He was a big deal, but the big-time offers were not there yet. Then the game happened. By the time he was a junior, he had a game against an Alabama high school known as Clay Chalkville. They were one of the better programs in the area, and this was the moment where Brian Robinson's stock skyrocketed. He ran for 447 yards, which broke a single-game Class 6A rushing record in the state of Alabama. From there, offers from Auburn, Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina all poured in, and now he was a 4-star recruit and a hot commodity on the recruiting scene. Not only did he have one good game, but he was also a star throughout his time at Hillcrest High School, and once he got the Bama offer, he was thrilled. He said, quote, "For me to have an offer to the University of Alabama and being born and raised literally 2 minutes from the stadium, that is something you cannot pass up. Once you start talking to Coach Saban, you don't want to go anywhere else." Robinson was also helping the team be successful, and the coach was confident in him and the team. He said that wherever Robinson goes, there will be a lot of eyes on him. He said Brian Robinson was a great football player and a lot of great talent around him. Robinson really bought into that team culture, and they won a lot of games, and he said his favorite moments were not his personal accolades, but what he achieved with his high school teammates. At the time, there was a lot of pressure for him to commit to Alabama, but he would stay patient and waited for the right time. With the kid being from the hometown area and a big-time recruit, obviously fans and locals wanted him to go there, and I bet every time he walked around, people were talking to him. As a senior, he ran for 1,286 yards with 15 touchdowns and also performed extremely well in front of coaches. He was the state's top running back prospect in 2017 and chose his hometown team over the likes of Auburn, Georgia, and Mississippi State. He was going to be going to Alabama. He originally was going to visit them for the Alabama-USC game, and some wondered if something was going wrong, but his commitment to the Tide was unwavered. He said, quote, "I'm very confident in my commitment. I'm strong with it, and I'm feeling very positive about it. Alabama coaches are on me about early enrolling, so I can start out with the spring unit and get in the rotation for the first game." So why Alabama outside of the obvious reasons? His coach said that the Tide's tradition at his position was a huge factor. Guys like Derrick Henry, TJ Yeldon, Mark Ingram, and Kenyon Drake had just come through there, and that was a major reason why he wanted to play there. His high school coach said, quote, "I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I know being somewhat close to his hometown was important to him and his mom. Obviously, with the history of the running back position at Alabama, that weighed in his mind. Part of it, too, is that the pressure seems to mount as you approach signing day your senior year. I think partially, he just wanted to go ahead and get it over with." He was surrounded by family when he signed to his hometown dream school, and said there was not a better feeling than having his entire family around him and all his good friends to support him. He said it was one of the best feelings and one of the best days of his life. Sadly, though, he was seen as the other option to Najee Harris, and now he would need to prove to the world that he made the right choice. Fun fact, Cam Akers was also committed to Alabama in that class, but he would later flip to Florida State. and we now know him as a good young running back in the NFL. According to 24/7 Sports, Brian Robinson was a 4-star recruit, the number 8 running back, and the 145th best player in the class of 2017. When he arrived at Alabama, there was a lot of talent behind him. Guys like Bo Scarborough, Damien Harris, Josh Jacobs, and Najee Harris were all in front of him, and also other players such as Jerome Ford and Keelan Robinson were there. But he was not afraid of the competition ahead of him. He said, quote, "There's a lot of great running backs, and I feel like I'm one of them. It'll definitely be fun competing with those guys. Regardless of rankings, everybody wants to compete and everybody wants to play. Any truly great player is a competitor, and guys like that should not be afraid and are not scared of any kind of competition." He knows that there are some really good players ahead of him, but if you're going to go to a good school that's on the level of an Alabama, that's going to be the case anywhere. It was a tough few years for Robinson. In his first 2 seasons, he only had 87 total carries for 437 yards and 4 touchdowns. After 2 years there, he would finally be looking to play, and it was starting to get to him. Many guys would have transferred or left, but he was the hometown kid and he wanted to make this a reality, so he waited. He said the most challenging part about it is that he came there and competed and worked hard every day, and that sometimes when you're a star in high school, you expect to go out there and be given the opportunity, but not at Alabama. He said you start asking yourself questions like, why am I not this, or why am I not that? But he said the truth was, he wasn't ready, and the film showed it. Former Alabama star Bo Scarborough also said the same thing. He said, quote, "This guy, he was just unbelievable physical-wise, putting in the work and all that, but mentally, he had a little ways to go." In 2019, he'd have an expanded role as he ran for 441 yards and 5 touchdowns. Alabama unfortunately missed the college football playoff due to losses to both LSU and Auburn. In 2020, he was the primary backup to Najee Harris, and he ran the ball for 483 yards and 6 touchdowns, while averaging 5.3 yards per carry, and he won a national title ring. He'd already played 4 seasons, so in most cases, he would be done. Thankfully for him, we had all this stuff go on in 2020, so you'd have an extra opportunity to come back. With Alabama's inexperienced running room, Brian Robinson knew he could be the feature guy, and this was the opportunity he would be waiting for. So he decided to come back for the 2021 season. He said, quote, "I'm extremely grateful to have had an opportunity to come back for an extra year. I didn't think it would turn out the way it did, but I'm blessed for that opportunity." Going into 2021, the running back room had a lot of options. There was a 4-way battle between Brian Robinson, Roydell Williams, Trey Sanders, and Jace McClellan, but Robinson established himself as the main back. He got the opportunity to start and had this to say before the Miami game. "I've worked my whole life for this opportunity, and I did everything I could to this point to put myself in this position. The biggest thing for me to do now is to just take advantage of my opportunity and continue to work hard every day, and hopefully I can get everything I want out of this deal." Robinson had patiently waited, so how would he do in 2021? Well, he ran for 60 yards in their win over number 14 Miami, and had his first touchdown of the year against Mercer. He had nearly 100 yards and a touchdown in their big road win over number 11 Florida, and then against Ole Miss, he finally had the game that everyone knew he was capable of. He ran the ball 36 times for 171 yards and 4 touchdowns as the Tide cruised over the number 12 Ole Miss Rebels. He had 147 yards in their loss to Texas A&M, but the following week, he had 2 touchdowns to lead them over Mississippi State. Against Tennessee, he once again had over 100 yards and had 3 touchdowns as they cruised to a late win over the Volunteers. He then scored against LSU, had 2 scores against New Mexico State, and then since then has not scored. So far in 2021, he's rushed the ball 223 times for 1,071 yards and 14 touchdowns. Because of that, he was named a first-team All-SEC player, and despite having a hurt hamstring, he still played against Georgia, and he is going to play in the college football playoff. The Tide will play Cincinnati in the first round, and then if they win, have the opportunity to either beat Georgia or Michigan in the national title game. Brian Robinson has earned every yard and every carry he's gotten, and in a world where the transfer portal exists, he decided to stick around, stay patient, and work for his opportunity, and it is going to pay off for him. Had he gone to the NFL last year, he likely would have been an undrafted free agent. Now, it looks like he's going to be a consensus 2nd or 3rd round pick, and he's going to make some good money, probably play in the NFL, and could be another example of an Alabama running back doing well in the NFL. For someone who's supposed to go that high in the draft, he's not getting a lot of hype. There's so many big names that have come through the Tides program, and Robinson does not get enough credit. A, he stuck around forever. B, he had a great year this year. And thirdly, he really carried this team in the rushing department. Yes, Bryce Young did some damage, but for the most part, no one behind him really stepped up. He had an injury early on in the year, and pretty much all the rushing yards in terms of running backs went to him. Defenses knew who to game plan around, and Robinson truly became a workhorse back and proved to the world that he belongs in the Alabama record books. What do you guys think, though? If you're an Alabama fan, what do you think of Brian Robinson? How do you think he will do in the NFL? And who is your favorite Bama back of all time? Be sure to let me know down in the comments section. Smash that like button if you want to support today's video, and let me know another 2022 NFL draft prospect I could do in my next video. Also, be sure to check out the playlist with all those videos down below and all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.